proper sequence or anything like that. So it's going to be a bit random where we go. So the last one, the Tisamataya Sutta, is a very profound sutta in many ways. And the idea now is to kind of backtrack a little bit and to do some of the more simpler of these suttas, get back to some of the basic ideas of the Dhamma, things that are practical, things that we can hopefully use and apply more directly and immediately here on retreat or wherever really. So now I'm going to look at the sutta called the Pingya Manavaputsha, the questions of Pingya, which actually are the very last questions in the sequence. So this is page 60 in the book, in this little booklet we have. So let's just get into it. So let's see what we have here, and then we'll kind of take it from there. So this is what we have. So this is what Venerable Pingya says to the Buddha, and then the Buddha replies. He says, "I'm old, feeble, my color gone," said Venerable Pingya. "My eyes are unclear, my hearing is faint. Don't let me perish while still confused. Explain the teaching so that I may understand the giving up of rebirth and old age here." "Seeing them being harmed by forms," replied the Buddha, "the negligent ones are oppressed by forms. Therefore, Pingya, being heedful, give up form so as not to be reborn." And Pingya says, "The 4 quarters, the intermediate directions below and above, in these 10 directions, there's nothing at all in the world that you have not seen, heard, thought, or cognized. Explain the teachings that I may understand the giving up of rebirth and old age here." "Observing mankind sunk in craving," replied the Buddha, "tormented, overcome by old age. Therefore, Pingya, being heedful, give up craving so as not to be reborn." So it is still profound. It's about giving up craving. It's about making an end of rebirth and these things. Obviously profound, but not. These are things that you can kind of relate to. And it begins with a very kind of basic idea of old age. Something that everyone in the world has to deal with, or some people don't have to deal with it. That's even worse. So hopefully we have to deal with old age. But it's obviously an unpleasant state. And what is interesting is that old age is one of those fundamental contemplations the Buddha talks about in the suttas quite a lot. Very significant old age. He talks about illness. He talks about death. These are kind of 3 of 5 very common contemplations. The other ones is the idea of being separated from everything that is beloved and pleasing, and then the ideas of reflection on your karma, your actions. And these are sutta called the 5 themes in the Anguttara Nikaya 557, which is basically those 5. And you see them recurring again and again in the suttas. Death being the most important one, but old age also being quite significant. And so here we're kind of getting into some of those basic, fundamental aspects or contemplations that are, so important to make the Dhamma work. And one of the things that always stood out for me is that this is not just something the Buddha teaches us that we should be doing, contemplating old age. But this is what the Buddha did before his awakening, the things that got him started on the spiritual path. You see this in the very famous sutta, the Arya Pariyesana Sutta, the Noble Search Sutta. It's such a beautiful, just the title of that sutta is so beautiful, the Noble Search. He had the idea that there is something to search for. There's a way of searching in the world that is noble, that is elevated, that is like something special. The majority of people don't have a noble search. The majority of people in the world search for ordinary things, things that are not really going to get you anywhere. Wealth, money, relationships, these things. This endless search that just goes on and on and on. then there's occasionally you find people who are on a noble search. We should all obviously strive to be on this noble search. And that noble search begins with the Buddha having precisely these kind of contemplations. Yeah, I am mired in old age, mired in illness, mired in death, mired in corruptions, kilesas, defilements if you like, mired in rebirth. And then I seek other things that are mired in the same thing. Why am I doing this? And then he gets started on the noble search to get out of this. But it starts with the very simple facts of life. Yeah, it is not. Sometimes we think the Dhamma is very profound, and it is. But it's also in many ways very straightforward. It's about facing up to the realities of existence. And when you do that in the right way, something very profound and beautiful comes out of it. And so the whole Dhamma, in a sense, is based on these simple things. And for us too, if we can base our life on these simple contemplations, we can have some very profound and amazing outcomes. And here we see Pingya reflecting a bit like this. Yeah, you see he's concerned about his old age, and he wants to kind of get out of this, overcome rebirth, because he understands he doesn't want to go on like this, life after life. And so he has this precise concern. So before I talk a little bit more about this, I want to look at there are some other suttas in the Pali Canon that mention Pingya. So he seems to have been a person that was known about, at least to some extent. And one of those first suttas is actually the summary sutta of the Parayanavagga. We're now looking at the Parayanavagga, the way to the beyond. And this has some introductory verses that we talked about on the first day, but it also has some summary verses at the very end. And after the summary verses, we have a sequence of verses spoken by Pingya, and they seem to be spoken to his old teacher, Bhavari. Presumably they go back to Bhavari after meeting the Buddha, and then he's speaking to Bhavari. And the way he speaks about the Buddha is very interesting here. He obviously has this tremendous faith in the Buddha, and this is one of these things that you sometimes see in the suttas. There are certain suttas where they extol the Buddha in verse. Very famously, the Upali Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya 57 or 56, or 56 maybe. And then there is the Sela Sutta, which is Majjhima Nikaya 98, I think, something like that, roughly that. And they go on and on and on, extolling the Buddha in verse. And this is one of those occasions. And this is, in a sense, a Buddha Nusati, the recollection of the Buddha. The standard way of recollecting the Buddha is the Itipiso formula, Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vijja Charana Sampanno, etc. But these are also kind of ways of extolling the Buddha. And it's interesting to see how people feel about the Buddha. It gives you an idea of the power of a person like this, the kind of imprint he leaves on people's minds after meeting him. It's really kind of extraordinary. So let me read that out for you. I'm not sure how much commentary is required, but just to give you a sense for how what this is like. So this is the very last chapter of the Parayanavagga. And this is what Pingya says. I shall keep reciting the way to the far shore. This is the Parayanavagga, said Venerable Pingya, which was taught as it was seen by the Immaculate One of vast intelligence. He is desireless, unentangled, a spiritual giant. Why would he speak falsely? Spiritual giant is a naga, these large dragons or elephants or snakes or whatever. This is also the word for the arahants in the world, the spiritual giants. Vast intelligence or vast wisdom might be better. Come, let me extol in sweet words of praise the one who's given up stains and delusions, conceit and contempt. The Buddha, all-seer, dispeller of darkness, has gone to the world's end, beyond all rebirth. He is free of defilements and has given up all suffering. The rightly named one, Brahmin, is revered by me. Like a bird that flees a little corpse to roost in a forest abounding in fruit, I have left the nearsighted behind, like a swan come to a great river. The Dhamma is like a forest abounding in fruit compared to a little corpse that he has left behind. Those who explained to me previously, before Gautama's teachings, said, "Thus it was," or "So it shall be." All that was just a testament of hearsay. All that just fostered speculation. Alone the dispeller of darkness is brilliant a beacon, Gautama of vast wisdom, Gautama vast in intelligence. He is the one who taught me Dhamma, apparent in the present life, immediately effective, the untroubled, the end of craving, to which there is no compare. And then Bhavari says, why would you dwell apart from him, even for an hour, Pingya? From Gautama vast in wisdom, from Gautama vast in intelligence. He is the one who taught you Dhamma, apparent in the present life, immediately effective, the untroubled, the end of craving, to which there is no compare. And Pingya replies, I never dwell apart from him, not even for an hour, Brahmin. From Gautama vast in wisdom, from Gautama vast in intelligence. He is the one who taught me Dhamma, apparent in the present life, immediately effective, the untroubled, the end of craving, to which there is no compare. Being diligent, I see him in my mind's eye, day and night. I spend the night in homage to him, hence I think I dwell with him. My faith and joy and intent and mindfulness never strays from Gautama's teachings. I bow to whatever direction the one of vast wisdom heads. I am old and feeble, so my body cannot go there, but I always travel in my thoughts, for my mind Brahmin is bound to him. Lying, floundering in the mud, I drifted from island to island. Then I saw the Buddha, the undefiled one who had crossed the flood. And then we have a little verse seemingly coming from the Buddha. Just as Vakali was committed to faith, Bhadrabuddha and Gautama of Alavi too, so too you should commit to faith. You will go, Pingya, beyond the domain of death. And Pingya says, my confidence grows, so I hear the word of the sage. The Buddha with veil cast off, so kind and eloquent, having directly known all about the gods, he understands all top to bottom, the teacher who settles all questions for those who admit their doubts, the unfaltering, the unshakable, that to which there is no compare. For sure I will go there, I have no doubt of that. Remember me as one whose mind is made up. So those are the verses of Pingya after his meeting with the Buddha, when he goes back to speak to Bhavari, it seems. So obviously the Buddha has made a pretty powerful impression on him. It's kind of extraordinary. And he has this idea that he never lives apart from the Buddha. Even though he lives far away, in his mind the Buddha is always there, bowing down in the direction of the Buddha. Wherever the Buddha is, you bow down to him. And it's a beautiful way of kind of ensuring that you always have the Dhamma in your heart. The Dhamma is always there with you. You never leave it behind. And this is one of the powers of, in the present day, you can't say the Buddha is in any particular direction, but we do have Buddha statues. And I think this is the idea of the Buddha statues. They stand in for the Buddha, and so we bow in the direction of the Buddha statue, just representing those qualities, representing this person of incredible wisdom who has given us the highest gift that any human being can give to anyone else. And so bowing down in this way, with tremendous faith, with a kind of desiring to build up the same qualities within us that the Buddha himself had. And this is one way of doing that, to build up those qualities by bowing down sincerely in the direction of something which is higher than us, higher than the qualities we possess now, with an aspiration to develop those qualities within ourselves. That's the purpose of bowing down. Bowing, when done in the right way, is something very beautiful. It is not like, it's an act of humility, of course, but it's also an act of aspiration, an act of looking towards something greater than what we are, beyond our present station of defilements, of qualities that aren't necessarily always as great as we would like them, but moving in that direction, trying to do something more with our lives. And this is kind of what Pingia shows us here through these beautiful verses. Anyway, this gives an idea of Pingia, of his qualities and how he saw his kind of relationship to the Buddha. It's fascinating here. So that is one of those suttas with Pingia. There are more suttas with Pingia. In fact, there's a couple of suttas with someone called Pingiyani. And so I thought, Pingiyani, might that be Pingia? It sounds like a very similar name. Is there someone called Pingiyani and someone called Pingia? Maybe it's the same person. And the way that the person is described, it sounds a little bit like Pingia. So I thought I would read out those suttas. I can't hurt anyway. So these are the two suttas that seem to relate to Pingiyani or Pingia. And then there's another one further down which is more directly Pingia. So a little bit uncertain there, but let's have a look and see what it says. So at one time the Buddha was staying near Vesali at the great wood in the hall with the peaked roof. This is one of the standard places where the Buddha stayed. Now at that time the Brahmin Karanapali was working for the Lichavis. Lichavis was one of those famous aristocratic clans at that time. Now he saw the Brahmin Pingiyani coming off in the distance and said to him, "So, Pingiyani, where are you coming from in the middle of the day?" "I am coming, my good man, from the presence of the ascetic Gautama, the Buddha." "What do you think of the ascetic Gautama's lucidity of wisdom? Do you think he is astute or wise?" "My good man, who am I to judge the ascetic Gautama's lucidity of wisdom? You would have to be the same level to judge his lucidity of wisdom." Master Pingiyani praises the ascetic Gautama with magnificent praise indeed. Who am I to praise the ascetic Gautama? He is praised by the praised as the first among gods and humans. But for what reason are you devoted to the ascetic Gautama? And then he comes up with a number of similes of why he is so devoted to the ascetic Gautama. So it sounds a bit like the other Pingia, the same kind of idea about having this tremendous faith. And he says, suppose a man was completely satisfied by the best tasting food. They wouldn't be attracted to anything that tasted inferior. In the same way, when you hear the ascetic Gautama's teaching, whatever it may be, whether statements, songs, discussions, or amazing stories, then you're not attracted to the doctrine of the various ascetics and Brahmins. The Buddha's teaching kind of stands out in the world. It's sort of, there's nothing really quite like it. And that was true 2,500 years ago. And if I'm going to be absolutely honest, it is still true in the present day. You read the suttas, and they are kind of incomparable in their depth, in their purity. There's nothing in the suttas that can be taken to support anything that is really wrong. You can't find a single passage in the Suttas that would support violence of any kind. It just doesn't exist. There's a thoroughness, an integrity, a purity to the Suttas of the Pali Canon, or any Suttas really, that is just unparalleled anywhere else. And then there's the profundity of these teachings, the way they debate, the way they discuss the various kinds of views. Eternalism, they deal with annihilationism, which is one of the most prevalent views in the present day. Everyone says, oh, you're just going to die and that's it. The Buddha says, no, it's not as easy as that. That would have been nice, but unfortunately, it isn't like that. And so it deals with all of the problems in the world that we are used to dealing with, whether there is a creator God, whether there is something permanent, whether things are annihilated. All of these profound questions are dealt with in great detail. There's something very, very satisfying about these teachings. There are many aspects of the Dhamma that are just incomparable. Like, for example, almost all spiritual paths will talk about the beginning of the universe. That seems to be one of the reasons why people have religion, because that kind of explains how the universe started. The Dhamma is the only place where it seems to say there isn't any beginning. It just goes back and back and back. There is no first cause. To me, that is the only sensible answer I've ever heard to that question. All the other answers are really unsatisfactory. And so it is, on and on and on. There's something about the Dhamma that stands kind of head and shoulder above all other spiritual teachings in the world, including atheist teachings. The universe starting with the Big Bang. That is also unsatisfactory. That means something emerged out of nothing. How is that possible? That is like a miracle. There was a famous American spiritual man called, I think his name was Terence McKenna. He was around back in the 90s and 80s or whatever. And he said that science is a bit like, give us one free miracle and we will explain everything else. That's kind of, the free miracle is the Big Bang, right? And then, okay, from then on we can explain everything, but we cannot explain the Big Bang. That's like a miracle. And that's not really satisfactory. We don't want to have these unexplained things. The Buddha says, there is no first point. Okay, that makes sense. There's something about the Dhamma that is just really thoroughly satisfactory. Okay, there are a few things in the Dhamma that are a bit weird as well, that is kind of hard to make sense of sometimes. But there usually is an explanation even for those things. Anyway, let's move on. And then that's the first thing he says. You are really so satisfactory to listening to these teachings. Second simile. Suppose a person who was weak with hunger was to obtain a honey cake. Wherever they taste it, they would enjoy a sweet, delicious flavor. In the same way, when you hear the ascetic Gautama's teaching, whatever it may be, whether statements, songs, discussions, or amazing stories, then you get a sense of uplift, a confidence of the heart. Songs here, Gaya is like usually a mixture of verse and prose, or actually usually verse. That's usually what it refers to, I think. Gata, Gaya, I'm a bit unsure now, to be honest. Anyway, it is the Dhamma. You get uplifted like having a honey cake. So I was thinking about the kind of the cake that we got today at lunchtime. Suddenly the cake emerged from the kitchen at the last minute. Wow, we're so just about to leave, and then kind of Nolia came out with a cake. So happy to see that cake. And now the Dhamma is probably, I would say the Dhamma even better, right? So that was nice, but the Dhamma even more kind of tasty when it really works. Actually, much more tasty. So let's move on to the next one. Suppose a person were to obtain a piece of sandalwood, whether yellow or red. Wherever they smelled it, whether at the root, the middle, or the top, they would enjoy the delicious fragrance. In the same way, when you hear the ascetic Gautama's teaching, whatever it may be, whether statements, songs, discussions, or amazing stories, you will become filled with joy and happiness. Now this is the idea. First of all, we talk about here uplift or confidence of the heart. Now he's talking about joy and happiness. Yeah, this is one of those important things about the Dhamma. The Dhamma is not just to be read for understanding. Understanding is good, but that is really only part of it. One of the main reasons why we're supposed to seek out the Dhamma is to feel a sense of uplift. Wow, my life has a meaning. Yeah, it is not all about social media and kind of stupid stuff. It has real meaning, life. There is a purpose. We're going somewhere. We're discovering reality. We're discovering, understanding what it means to be a human being. We are aiming for insight. We're aiming for something truly profound. And of course, if you find meaning in life, one of the most important things for us as human beings is to have a sense of meaning. Without meaning, life is nothing. It's kind of wandering around in the desert. And this is why the simile for doubt in the suttas is the idea of being in a desert, being in the wilderness. There's no water, there's no food, there's nothing to sustain you. What sustains you is these things that give you joy and happiness and meaning, a sense of purpose to your existence. So this is what the Dhamma gives. And ideally, read the suttas with that in mind. You are now in the presence of the Buddha, like Pingya when you read the suttas. This is the Buddha talking to you. Yeah, the Buddha is talking to you when you read the suttas. In the present day, people love to listen to the teachings of various contemporary teachers. And I must admit, I often love listening to Ajahn Brahm because there's a quality about the way that Ajahn Brahm teaches that is just really beautiful. It's just sometimes the content, I've heard the content so many times, it's very hard for him to say anything I never heard before. But it's just the way he speaks that is so beautiful. It is so, comes from the sense of kindness, it comes from a sense of peace, it comes from a sense of depth and profundity. Just sitting there in his presence, you become peaceful. This feeling that this is the real deal, when you're there. And that's very rare in the world to feel that. But when you listen to the word of the Buddha, it's the same. The Buddha is our teacher. When the Buddha, I love to always point out that when the Buddha gave these teachings 2,500 years ago, it wasn't just to the people in front of him. It was to everybody. It was to future generations. It was to people in different countries. It was to people in Jhana Grove. That's why he didn't, specifically think about Jhana Grove, obviously, but it's for everyone. And so we are also included. Every one of you, me. That's kind of great. The Buddha, the greatest spiritual giant in recorded human history, is my teacher. Whoa, that's amazing. How did I get so lucky? Whoa, isn't that great? So when you read the suttas like that, this is the Buddha teaching you. He is now thinking of you. He knows the human heart. He knows the human mind. He knows how we work. He knows how to inspire us. So read it in the right way. Then it comes alive in a beautiful sense. And this is the way to think about this. Then it can give a sense of joy, purpose, meaning, a sense that life truly is more than what it seems to be sometimes. Suppose there was a person who was sick, suffering, gravely ill. A good doctor would cure them on the spot. In the same way, when you hear the ascetic Gautama's teaching, whatever it may be, whether statements, songs, discussions, or amazing stories, then you make an end of sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness, and distress. Suppose there was a lotus pond with clear, sweet, cool water, clean with smooth banks, delightful. Then along comes a person struggling in the oppressive heat, weary, thirsty, and parched. They'd plunge into the lotus pond to bathe and drink, and all their stress, weariness, and heat exhaustion would die down. In the same way, when you hear the ascetic Gautama's teaching, whether it be statements, songs, discussions, or amazing stories, then all your stress, weariness, and exhaustion dies down. When this was said, the Brahmin Karanapali got up from his seat, arranged his robe over one shoulder, like this, knelt on his right knee, raised his joined palms towards the Buddha and expressed this heartfelt sentiment 3 times. Homage to the Blessed One, the Perfected One, the fully awakened Buddha. Homage to the Blessed One, the Perfected One, the fully awakened Buddha. Homage to the Blessed One, the Perfected One, the fully awakened Buddha. And then he says, excellent Master Pingyani, excellent, as if he were righting the overturned, or revealing the hidden, or pointing out the path to the lost, or lighting a lamp in the dark, so people with good eyes can see what is there. Master Pingyani has made the teaching clear in many ways. I go for refuge to Master Gautama, to the teaching, and to the mendicant Sangha. From this day forth, may Master Pingyani remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for life. So that is the standard way that people express their appreciation of the Dhamma, the revealing of the hidden, turning on the light in the darkness, setting right what was overturned. All of these are beautiful similes that give a sense of what it means that when you encounter the Dhamma and you fully understand what is going on there. But let's leave those for now. So, Pingya. There you are, Pingyani. Not sure, either Pingya or Pingyani. Doesn't really matter. Sounds like the same person to me. So another little sutta with Pingyani. Again, it's really about his great faith. But here we have a little teaching by the Buddha at the end. So now we are kind of moving slowly towards the Dhamma. So this is Anguttara 5, 195. The previous one was Anguttara 5, 194. So 2 after each other, both with Pingyani. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Vesali in the great wood in the hall with the peaked roof. Now at that time, around 500 Lichavis were visiting the Buddha. Some of the Lichavis were in blue, of blue color, clad in blue, adorned with blue. And some were similarly colored in yellow, red, and white. But the Buddha outshone them all in beauty and glory. Then the Brahmin Pingyani got up from his seat, arranged his robe over one shoulder, raised his joined palms towards the Buddha, and said, I feel inspired to speak, Blessed One. I feel inspired to speak, Holy One. Then speak as you feel inspired, said the Buddha. And so the Brahmin Pingyani extolled the Buddha in his presence with fitting verse. Like a fragrant pink lotus that blooms in the morning, its fragrance unfaded, I see Angirasa shine, bright as the sun in the sky. That is Pingyani's verse extolling the Buddha. So just very briefly, just to explain to you what is going on here. The Lichavis were this famous aristocratic clan of the Vajjian Republic in India. This was next door to Kosala. Kosala was where the Buddha was born. He was born in the Sakya, and the Sakyan Republic was part of Kosala, this large kingdom. And they were very wealthy, and it seems that they would often kind of dress up in blue, yellow, and red, and they would the carriage, everything would be like that. So it seemed like they were having a lot of fun and playing around. That seemed to be their kind of thing. And then it says the Buddha outshone them all in beauty and glory. So what does that mean? Does the Buddha shine in beauty and glory? In what sense does the Buddha shine? And to be able to kind of understand that, it is something that you can sometimes see with people who practice meditation very deeply. Sometimes they will shine in a very powerful way. And sometimes you meet people with this incredible, obviously samadhi or something, and they just stand out. You get this feeling of someone who is who just is shining in a sense. And I remember this is a few years ago now, I was visiting a very famous monk in Thailand. And I was sitting next to this monk. His monk was very friendly, so he was sitting on this large throne of a seat. And because I'm quite a senior monk, I suppose. Yeah, almost, I don't know how many reigns I had then, maybe 25 or something. Yeah. And so he put me on the seat next to him, yeah, because he was being very friendly towards me. Yeah. And so he put me on this large seat next to him. And so I was very close to this monk. Ajahn is his name. Very close to him, as I could kind of observe him. He's this tiny little monk, yeah? And he was quite overweight and tiny, very round face, and always smiling. Yeah. And I looked at him and I thought, well, Ajahn, you are getting a bit old and ugly now. And I thought, I better be careful what I think in the presence of monks like this. You never know what they can do. And so, but then I looked at him again, and I thought, well, even though you are getting a bit old and ugly, you are still really beautiful, yeah, because of your radiance, the radiance of the metta, the radiance of the power of the mind. Obviously, you are still very beautiful. So it was like this dissonance between his old age and kind of falling apart a little bit on the one hand, but this radiance on the other hand. And you recognize the power of that mind that actually brings out this very beauty of an entirely different kind than what we are used to. And I think the Buddha would probably have been like that, yeah, but even more so, even maybe multiplied manyfold beyond what you saw there. Yeah, this kind of special radiance. And you see this occasionally in the Suttas. People meet the Buddha and they say, wow, yeah, what's going on? Your faculties are so bright. And that would have been like, the eyes and maybe the color of the skin, or I don't know what, the faculties, the whole body would have been special in this way. So I think there is a reflection of the mind in the faculty of a person like this. And so I think this is true. And so this is when this Brahmin then says, yeah, that you are shining Angirasa. Angirasa is another name for the sun. Rasa is like rays. And this is another epithet of the Buddha, yeah, Angirasa. And so used in the suttas quite frequently. So he extols the Buddha in this way. And then the Lichavis, having heard that verse, what do? They gave 500 upper robes to Pingyani. So they were so pleased with that one verse, they gave him 500 robes. Maybe we should learn some verse, some nice verse. Come in handy, get 500 robes. So anyway, you have to kind of do them on the spot, right? You have to kind of, whoa, a verse is coming to me, and you say these verses. This is actually, find this in a few places in the suttas where they this is kind of how some of those monks who speak spontaneous verse, they say that in the presence of the Buddha. Oh, I feel inspired. Okay, speak your words, and then out it just comes, it flows out of them. This is obviously what's happening here. But then Pingyani gave those 500 robes to the Buddha. Yeah, so the Buddha got 500 robes. So obviously the Buddha had lots of disciples, so presumably they would be passed on to his disciples later on. And then the Buddha said to the Lichavis, he says, Lichavis, the appearance of 5 treasures is rare in the world. What 5? A realized one, a perfected one, a fully awakened Buddha. Number 1. A person who explains the teachings and training proclaimed by the Buddha. Number 2. A person who understands the teaching and training proclaimed by a Buddha. Number 3. A person who practices in line with the teaching. Number 4. A person who is grateful and thankful. Number 5. You hadn't really expected that one, had you, as the 5th one? That comes as a kind of a contrast to the other ones. I think that's kind of the point, to make that contrast there. But this is still very useful to remember, right? The appearance of a Buddha in the world is rare. It reminds you of the urgency of the practice. It reminds you that now is the chance to do what is right, to live in the right way, to come to Jhana Grove, to do all the right kind of things. You don't know when the opportunity will arise again. So rare, a person who explains the teaching, training and teaching proclaimed by the Buddha is rare in the world. That's kind of fascinating. It is rare to find I guess, disciples of the Buddha who really teach what the Buddha taught. It's kind of, you don't get that very often. And even in the present day, when you listen to the majority of Buddhist teachers, it's actually rare that they really teach the word of the Buddha. Very often they will teach things that are hopefully in line with the word of the Buddha, but sometimes that can be hard to tell because they will use their own words and their own phrases, and so it can be difficult to tell sometimes. And this is one of the reasons why I prefer, instead of kind of just giving Dhamma talks, I like to go to the word of the Buddha, because then you know that you are on fairly solid grounds. One of the reasons why I like these kind of retreats, sutta retreats. I've been doing this when I first started out. It was very rare. I hadn't really heard of anyone else who did these kind of retreats, but they have been very popular, these kind of retreats with the word of the Buddha. I teach these sort of retreats everywhere around the world when I travel around, and there's always large numbers of people coming to listen. And so that's really, I don't know, there's something very nice about that. So this is one of the reasons why we give these sort of retreats, and so it shows you the importance of focusing on the word of the Buddha and not on the word of whoever. A person who understands the teaching and training proclaimed by the Buddha is rare in the world. The majority of people are not interested in the Dhamma. The majority of people, they hear Dhamma and they yawn and they go off in the wrong direction. Like Upaka, the famous one in the Arya Pariyesana Sutta, who just heads off in the wrong direction. Most people head off in the wrong direction. Instead of going to Bodhinyana Monastery, they go to Kanna Prison Farm instead. That's just up the road, right? Kingsbury Drive leads to two places, Kanna Prison Farm or Bodhinyana Monastery. Most people go to Kanna Prison Farm. So, but that's kind of just a simile for heading in the wrong direction. Most people don't really understand that there's something special going on here. And then many people will, a certain degree of number of people will understand the teaching, but then how many actually practice it? The person who practices in line with the teaching is very rare in the world. You can understand it, but actually putting into the practice is another level again. Because it's hard to feel that inspiration always. It's hard to understand the difference that it can make in your life. It is difficult to understand the sense of urgency. It is difficult to understand that the alternative to practice can be quite devastating. And so all of these things make it hard to get into it and practice properly. So if you are already on track with these first four here, and many of you, all of you are, otherwise you wouldn't be here, you are obviously practicing. So you got all of these four. Then the question is, have you got the last one? A person who is grateful and thankful is rare in the world. And it sets up a contrast here, and obviously that's a very important point. That's why the contrast is made. Being able to have a sense of gratitude and thankfulness, to the Dhamma, to the Buddha, to anyone really in the world, whenever they do something. How do we feel about that? It's hard. It's not a natural feeling for many human beings to have that sense of gratitude. And it shows you what a powerful spiritual quality that is. In another place in the Anguttara Nikaya, it says it is the true people in the world, the Sappurisas, the Aryas. They are the ones who are grateful and thankful. Ordinary people, it is not so common. So it's something that we should strive towards. When someone gives you something, that sense of gratitude is a beautiful response. Anyway, so Pingyani. Now, let us come back to the actual sutta. So I read it out already. I've been taking a bit of a detour, but now let us have a quick look at what the sutta itself says. So just repeating a little bit, Pingyā now says, I'm old, feeble, my color gone, my eyes are unclear, my hearing faint. Don't let me perish while still confused. You can see someone, presumably who has been searching for the truth for a long, long time, wandering around. Now only when he gets old, finally has he found this someone who really has the right kind of teaching, the teaching that really makes sense to him. But it's almost too late. Yeah, he doesn't know how much time he's got left. Now is the last chance, and he's kind of a little bit desperate because he understands he's coming to the end of his life. And so it's the same thing for us. Yeah, before you know it, you're old. I can't believe it sometimes how quickly I got to the age I am now. I'm not going to tell you. You probably know how old I am anyway, but it's it's kind of weird. Yeah, it feels like yesterday I was 20 and suddenly, oh, now I'm over 60. How did that happen? What happened to those 40 years? They kind of just vanished like that. Yeah, and it happens so fast. One day you wake up and, oop, I'm old now. It's almost like that. It's kind of it's almost like from one. I don't know what old exactly means. But it's like, I think it's a bit like that. One day you recognize suddenly, I am of a certain age, or I am old, or whatever. And so be very careful, because these things happen very fast. And it's very easy to put things off, and to wait, and not to do things while you still have the opportunity. A reasonably young body is very, very helpful to be able to meditate, to be able to withstand the problems in the world, the difficulties and things. Yeah, when you get very old, it's really hard. I see that some of you have some old monks in the monastery, and when I say old, I mean like in their 80s, and it's difficult for them. Yeah, it's really hard, and you can see how that is so detrimental to the spiritual practice. So remind yourself that you're heading in that direction. And of course, just after old age, very soon after that, comes death. Death is an even more powerful contemplation, but it kind of goes with old age, because the two are obviously very closely related to each other. And I really recommend everyone here to do some death contemplation, because if there's anything that gives rise to a sense of urgency, it is that death contemplation. It says in the Sutta that if you really establish your mind in death contemplation, you never disrobe as a monastic. Why? Because if you can die tomorrow, why on earth would you want to disrobe for? Yeah, there's nothing to be done in the world. If you can die the day after tomorrow, whenever it is, it doesn't make any difference. Yeah, the death is always around the corner. What has the world got to offer you? Nothing. The only thing that has anything to offer you in the face of death is the spiritual path, because it is the spiritual path that makes you ready for death. It is the spiritual path that makes you ready for what comes after death, whether it is rebirth or whether, ideally, it is just the ending of everything. So the worldly life is about indulging. It's about kind of being heedless. It's not about kind of understanding the larger picture of things. There's no way you're going to disrobe if you understand, if you recollect death in the right way. And it's the same thing for every one of you. It doesn't matter if you are ordained or not. If you are, as a lay person, it's the same thing. You understand the sense of urgency. There's no time to mess around. There's no time to allow yourself to be deluded by the sensual things of the world, or be deluded by whatever it is that the world takes to you. What you want is clarity, and clarity arises from the death contemplation. And death contemplation means remembering not only that you are going to die. Far more important, what really matters is that you don't know when you are going to die. That is what really matters. Not that you're going to die, but you don't know when you're going to die. It can happen at any time. This is the reality of things. It may not feel like it. You may not be able to see it. Yeah, but that is the reality of it. You have no idea. It doesn't matter how old you are. One of the great benefits of being a monk is that you get to go to funeral ceremonies all the time. Yeah, isn't that great? Yeah. You may think that funeral ceremonies are terrible, but actually it is good. It reminds you of the nature of life. And funerals, all kinds of people die. Sometimes you have these tiny little coffins of babies, and most of the time it is the old people who die, and then there's all the people in all the ages in between. You can die at any time. When you read, one way of doing this, you don't have to go to the funeral ceremonies. You can just read about the deaths in the newspaper. And when you read about deaths in the newspaper, you see people dying of all ages. When you read those articles in the newspaper, don't think that's someone else. Don't think it's got nothing to do with me. They were foolish, yeah, they were in the wrong place or a town at the wrong time or whatever, they shouldn't have done that. This is just a mafia killing each other or whatever. Don't think like that. Whatever happens in the newspaper, whatever happens to other people can also happen to you. Yeah, we are not kind of beyond this dying in strange and weird ways. Death can happen in the strangest kind of ways. And so you have to make it real like that. You have to remind yourself even of the ways that you can die. You don't know right now whether you have some kind of illness inside of you. Yeah, is there some cancer in here? Probably is some cancer in here. Hopefully it won't go too far, but you never know. Yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen. You can fall down somewhere, you can stumble on something, and bang, that could be it. I said the other day there wasn't that many snakes in the forest. It's true, but there are some snakes in the forest. There's no more than zero, right? And so the reality is you don't know what can happen. And so this makes it real. And the moment it makes it real, it does something to the defilements of the mind. The defilements of the mind cannot stay in the face of death, because the defilements are always tend to be about the future or about the past. Now the future is kind of irrelevant if you're going to die. Yeah, you're not going to think about your petty desires or silly desires, your next relationship, your next car, your next meal even, if you know you're going to die. All of that becomes kind of irrelevant. And if all your desires die down because you remember death, it can make you peaceful. And this is the idea of death contemplation. It stops you from doing stupid things in life in general, but can also make you peaceful in meditation right now. Yeah, because it allows you, it actually doesn't allow you, it makes the defilements of the mind just disappear right on the spot, because they make no sense in the face of death. Why desire anything if you're going to die? It's a waste of time. Why think about the past? Why think about the people who wronged you? Why be angry with someone when you're out of here? You are moving on. You are goodbye to all of these people. That doesn't make any sense anymore either. Yeah, on your deathbed, you're not going to pick a fight with anyone on your deathbed. That's the last thing you want to do. You just want to be peaceful on your deathbed. Well, I've got news for you. You are on your deathbed right now. Now is the time to be on your deathbed. Now is the time to remember that you never know. And so for that reason, you're on your deathbed now. That is the right way to think about this. Then you can let go of that anger. Then you can avoid picking that fight with somebody. You can avoid those defilements of desire and stupidity that come to us. And this is the power of the death contemplation. And so Pingya, he is almost given a natural death contemplation. He is old. Don't let me perish. Yeah, don't let me die before I've understood this teaching. This is what he's saying to the Buddha here. Please teach me the Dhamma so I can understand. Let's put ourselves in Pingya's shoes so we can also see what is going. We can use this contemplation in a positive way. So he says, explain the teaching so I may understand the giving up of rebirth and old age here. Yeah, rebirth and old age go together because if you get reborn, you will have old age again and death again and again and again and again. And that is the real issue. Seeing them being harmed by forms, the negligent ones are oppressed by forms, says the Buddha. Therefore, Pingya, being heedful, give up form so as not to be reborn. People are harmed and oppressed by form. What does that mean? It means that the body and the things that we see in our minds are often oppressive. Yeah, I'm sure you know that by now, how oppressive the body can be. You try to sit on the floor for an hour or half an hour or sometimes just 10 minutes or not even that. And there's all kind of pains and problems, right? Yeah? So no, I apologize, I'm being naughty. Yeah, so you move because of the pains in the legs or pains in the body or whatever it is. Yeah? And that is just the nature of the body. It's good that we move. We should be moving when we have pain. We shouldn't force ourselves to sit still. That's just stupid as well. So please move. but it says something about the oppressive nature of the body. And this is one of the things you find when you start meditating, that the body begins to disappear. The pains kind of go further and further away. They're no longer really so important anymore. And there comes a point when the body is completely gone. And this is one of the most blissful things about meditation, the fact that the body is gone, because the body is a problem. It's somewhere in the Suttas, the Buddha says that the body is an abyss of painful feelings. It's an abyss because there's no end to painful feelings in the physical body. And so one of the things we try to do is to transcend, go beyond these physical feelings in the body. This is one of the things that meditation can do. And straight away, you gain a lot of insight into the nature of the body by deepening your meditation in this way. Form is oppressive. The body is oppressive in this way. The body is oppressive in so many ways because we have to look after it, we have to take it to the toilet, we have to shower it, we have to kind of clothe it, we have to do all these kind of things with this terrible body. It is very demanding. And what do we get in return? Dukkha, painful feelings, is all we get in return. That's all the only gratitude we get from this body. There's no gratitude. And so, after a while, you get fed up with that body, and that, of course, encourages you to do more meditation, to go beyond that body. So we are oppressed by forms. Not only is it the body that is oppressive, sometimes you can also be oppressed by forms in your mind, by the things that happen in your mind, by your memories, by all kinds of things. This is also often comes as forms, Sometimes you meditate and kind of things from the past come back to you and assail you in your mind. Someone told me yesterday they're having all the kind of visions in the mind. And those visions that you have in your mind, that is also being oppressed by form. So when these things happen in your meditation, then come back to the breath. Remember where the peace is to be found. Don't take any interest in these things. And if you stay with the breath and you allow these forms, these memories, these things that are created by your mind or whatever it is, if you just allow them to stay there at the back of your mind, but your main interest is in the breath, it will gradually fade away. That is the nature of these things. As long as you take an interest in them, they will become prominent. They will keep on obsessing you, keep on harming you, keep on being a problem. But if you allow the breath to become more important, or the metta meditation or whatever, gradually you overcome these oppressive forces in the mind. So form is oppressive in this way. And if you are negligent, if you are pamada, then you will be oppressed by these forms. And if you are appamada, if you are diligent, if you are heedful, if you are careful, you're able to go beyond them. So very briefly, Pingya then says, the four quarters, the intermediate directions below and above, in these 10 directions, there is nothing at all in the world that you have not seen, heard, thought, or cognized. Explain the teachings that I may understand the giving up of rebirth and old age. What does it mean that the Buddha has seen, heard, thought, and cognized everything in the world? Obviously, he hasn't seen the galaxies far away, so what does it mean? And what it means is that he has seen, heard, thought, and cognized is the way that we relate to spiritual teachings. So we see a spiritual person and we gain faith. We hear their teaching and we gain faith and we follow after. We reflect on those teachings and we develop those teachings. We cognize, it means like you realize, you experience those teachings in your mind. So this is all about spiritual teaching. So the Buddha has the full understanding of all spiritual teachings in the world because they can be understood in the framework of the Four Noble Truths or the Noble Eightfold Path. How far they go, how far they will take you, what are the limitations, what are the strengths, etc. So this is what this actually means, because it is in the context of awakening that you can understand all the other teachings. So then the Buddha replies, Observing mankind or humankind sunk in craving, replied the Buddha, tormented. Torment, I'm sure all of you have a little bit of torment in your life. Overcome by old age. Therefore, Pingya, being heedful, give up craving so as not to be reborn. The Buddha is pointing out that craving is the problem. Craving is the root of suffering. And we will be talking much more about this during this retreat, because this is obviously a core part of the Dhamma, a core part of what this path is about. And in the meantime, I'm sure you already have a fair understanding of this, and we shall be going into it more deeply as we carry on. So that is it for now. So please carry on and enjoy yourself, and we'll see you back again this evening at 7 o'clock.